This is Quantum Nova. This is my clanmates. Clanmates, introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Agenta 1999. I'm the resident lore nerd, as well as also a YouTuber.
Hey, I'm Zealous Vendictor. I'm the resident general, and I keep the clan somewhat alive on Warframe as well.
He's also the assistant lore nerd that points out all the stuff I miss.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later.
So-
I guess I'll start this off. I recently today, Digital Extremes released a Sacrifice teaser trailer, which is a Umbra teaser, the Umbra trailer from E3, which started to spark my interest in a few different subjects. I think I'll let Zeal talk.
So there's a tree that is displayed in this trailer. It resembles a sakura tree from Japan, which is a cherry blossom tree. And in Japan's culture, the sakura tree represents mortality, which may help confirm some theories that Agenta will explain now.
One of the other things that happens next in the trailer is the first showing we have seen of gameplay of Excalibur Umbra, the first Umbra Warframe. I will immediately point out significance in that Excalibur Umbra highly resembles the Stalker from the Second Dream, as well as the assassination stalking enemy that pops up in missions after completing boss fights. However, what makes the Excalibur Umbra incredibly interesting, in my opinion, is his energy color is a color called Jade. We'll be talking more about Jade later. Shortly afterwards, we see Excalibur Umbra sitting in front of the Sakura tree, and he howls. And then Ballas comes in and says, "Howl all you want. You cannot bring him back." Umbra, we know, is a different type of Warframe. He's similar to the Primes, however different. Umbra has been theorized for a while to be a Warframe that has been separated from its operator. And now we see Excalibur Umbra sitting in front of a sakura tree, which can represent mortality, howling, and Ballas says, "Howl all you want. You can't bring him back." I'm going to let Zeal continue with the last line about Ballas' dialogue.
He sounds like Hun Hao from the Second Dream. While this is highest speculation, by the way, a lot of it, but there is the possibility that Hun Hao is also Ballas in the way that Lotus is also Margulis.
And keep in mind, Lotus is also known as Nata, and Nata is a sentient.
Right.
But Margulis is an Orcan. One of the other things which I have forgotten up to this point is that it's mentioned several times that the sentients are able to adapt Orcan technology into themselves in order to improve themselves and gain resistances against Orcan weaponry. There is a potential, and this is once again very high speculation, that this might also extend to adapting Orcan personalities rather than just Orcan technology, so that possibly a sentient is able to blend in among Orcan society and help eliminate the Orcan. This is actually somewhat supported later and is a potential support for Ballas actually being Hun Hao, especially if we consider the Prime Access trailers. But first, I want to talk about one of the last lines we hear during the Apostasy prologue, which is Ballas stating this: "Honored Seven, we have gathered here today to carry out the sentencing of Archimedean Margulis. You, who face the Jade light, recant, and we will grant a merciful death. Jade can also represent purity or eternal in Asian culture. And Zeal can talk more now because he's more of the culture stuff.
In Asian cultures, since Jade represents either eternity or purity, it could relate to the sealing of spirits, could relate to transference energy or the void.
One of the other things that pops up, and I'm actually got this from Warframe Reddit, which is the Jade Light. Ballas says, "You who face the Jade Light, recant, and we will grant a merciful death." From the Detron crewman synthesis entry, we hear the line, "They opened the chamber door just in time for me to see it happen." The Archimedean erupting into a flash. Jade-like and blinding, I knew her. She was the greatest scholar of genetics who ever lived. Except now she was nothing but mist and gore. It's mentioned later in that same thread, and this is actually on the Warframe official forums. We know that the individual that is talking during this scene is a person named Parental. Parental worked with Ballas to get the approval for creating the sentients, even though their existence went against the 7 key principles of the Oricum. The Archimedean is most likely not Margulis, as Margulis was more of a scientific researcher and not a scholar for genetics. However, Parental working with Ballas might have something to do with the fact that Ballas mentions the Jade Light, which appears to be an ancient Oricum form of execution. Next up, we're talking about Balises' primary lines of dialogue we know of his, which are the Prime Access trailers. We have seen currently Saren, Vauban, Necros, Banshee, Valkyr, Oberon, and Mirage. There is also theorized plans for a Hydroid and Zephyr Prime trailers. However, those have currently not come out, and I think I might have a tinfoil hat theory for why this is. However, I want Quantum first to mention something interesting he noticed about the first letters of each of the trailers.
Oh yeah, so looking at the trailers, I noticed that in the first letters of the name, for Sam we have S, then we have
Vauban with
Wallband,
V,
B,
Necros,
and then Necros
and
N, which is, you could say in some lotteries they have that as an acronym for the number 7. Okay, we have 7 there, and then for the next set of Prime trailers, we have
Banshee, Valkyr,
hmm
Oberon, and Mirage, and Quantum noticed something interesting.
So with that, this is a stretch on the actual spelling, but it could be spelled as "be gone." So 7 be gone. So yeah, I don't know if you want to take this, Agenta.
We know that the Oricum were led by a group of individuals known as the Honored Seven. I'm not familiar much with the Oricum hierarchy, so I will let Zeal and Quantum talk with this, as I'm sure they know more than me.
This is going to be very complex. Most of this lore I learned off of StallordD's video on what we
Which
know
will
about
be
the
linked
Oricum hierarchy.
Which will be linked in the description, as well
Yeah.
as all of these links, which I will provide at the end of this.
Yeah. The Oricums have a hierarchy of Grineer, who are lower age kind of commoners, who are actually, instead of commoners, they're mostly slaves at this point in time. Then there's the Corpus, who were the commoners of the Empire.
I'm also highly focused on greed and wealth.
Well, now they are, but yeah, generally.
Hmm.
Then there's the
The Dax.
executors. Lord, they should
Below, below the executors is also the Dax.
right. The Dax guard the Orican executors and hierarchs.
The most notable Dax we know of is Teshin, who Dax are also sealed so that whoever wields the Kuva scepter is able to control the Dax.
So there are two ranks of executors that I know of. There's the normal 7 executor council that is the highest of them all,
The Honored Seven.
right?
The
And
Honored
then
Seven.
there's the executors that have less provisional power than the Honored 7 do.
Ballas is an example of the latter form of executor. Ballas is not one of the Honored Seven to our current knowledge.
Yes.
He might be, however, he always refers to them as the Honored Seven, rather than himself as one of them.
Okay.
Also, the final rank which we know of, which is the Archimedeans, which I believe are scientists and researchers.
They're indeed scientists and researchers, and they are a level in between the lower level lower level executors and the corpus. So you can think of them kind of like nobility.
And Margulis, which we all know now as somewhat the Lotus, was an Archimedean and is the most notable and known Archimedean. However, there was another Archimedean we know of who was a geneticist, I believe, which was the one who did research and experiments in the Silver Grove and in transference.
And something else is the Silver Grove. The way that the Silver Grove was made was through a forced transference from one end to the other end of one person who loses their body to become one with an inanimate object. This sequence can be found in another StallordD video, which details exactly what we know on the Silver Grove and transference as a whole.
The other thing about transference that we know is that in body or mind or individual is forcibly corrupted and attempted to be controlled by a series of kind of transmissions as their mind and body are eroded to make place for a new body. This can be seen as a very forceful process and in general was what was well, this is also what was used for Kuva, which was the concept of continuity for
Isn't
the
that
Orcam.
isn't that what the queens were doing?
Yes, the queens were using basically what we know about the continuity ritual is the Orcam would use continuity, which is Kuva, as well as this forceful control of another individual, to take control of another individual's body and possess them, thus allowing them to live on in their body. This would be used to make the Orcam basically immortal, as long as they had the supply of Kuva, as well as acceptable bodies.
Additionally, Kuva has this odd relationship with Oro.
These trailers are, as I mentioned, trailers released with new primes. The ones we know of are Seren, Vauban, Necros, Banshee, Valkyr, Oberon, and Mirage, which of course, as we mentioned, potentially spells out 7 Begone. This 7 Begone message was for me a big shocker. However, it wasn't my first theory into the concept of Ballas potentially turning against the Orcan. This mostly comes from the trailers, and the first one was Seren Primes. I will read the quote that Ballas says during the trailers, at least the important ones. But for Seren Prime, I want you to pay attention to the first couple lines. Here we go. Margulis, from your winter ashes there has sprung a field of flowers, conceived by me, germinated for deadly purpose. You used to dream of old Earth, didn't you? Bathed in gold and solemn blue. I intend to reclaim it now, from the spores and the ruin. It came to me like a proverb. Fight poison with poison. Cure this sick horde with the greatest of plagues. I will call her Saren.
Agenta was saying this earlier. That's how Ballas and Margulis, though it was very, how would you
There's a
say?
big theory that they're potentially in a relationship.
Yeah,
Very romantic one at that.
yeah. Trying to
And
use.
the first
Go
and
ahead.
from that first part of the trailer we hear Ballas say, Margulis, from your winter ashes there has sprung a field of flowers, conceived by me, germinated for deadly purpose. Was something, and I noticed this, and I realize this is a bit weird, something oddly sexual about that quote for me, but it's not just that. We have to realize Ballas is the individual that created the Warframes. He created the things the Tenno used to fight in the old war, as well as what we use in-game. Margulis, however, laid down the foundation for transference, and so in some ways, both of them were responsible for, in some ways, the birth or the concept of Warframes. And so this line shows that Ballas does not forget Margulis, because obviously, based on the first line, Winter Ashes, Margulis is dead and presumably killed during the winter, which I will be mentioning a bit later, I think. And he mentions that she used to dream of old Earth and that Ballas will help reclaim it. It's something weird. We see the concept of Earth being corrupted, and we know the Oricon are humans, and humans used to reside on Earth, and so the Earth became corrupted, possibly representing the Oricon's corruption as their empire progressed. This is extremely high speculation, though I don't think this is mostly just me mentioning what's coming
Yeah.
ahead right now. The next trailer is Warframe Prime. Warframe Prime was the second Prime Access trailer. Ballas says during this one, lust was my sin, but greed is the blight that weakens our steel. These industrialists have gorged on the harvest of our long war. Their mine drones, their mechanizations toil in foundries remote. For what purpose? We must set watch upon them, baiting our snares with the worms of profit. Those kneeling at the altar of commerce will be returned to the void. For your consideration, Vauban. Ballas says at the very beginning, lust was my sin. We commonly associate lust with love and lusting over someone else. Ballas mentions that lust was his sin. The concept of sin is one that I actually find extremely complicated. I don't normally talk about it, even though it seems to be mentioned in every game ever, which actually has a complicated lore. But for Ballas to consider lust his sin, it would mean he has a great error or something he doesn't want to talk about, some blight upon him, which is caused by lust. We know he was in love with Margulis, so could this love be his sin and what causes problems? He then says, but greed is the blight that weakens our steel. Steel can be regarded both as a metal and then both as an army or forces. The concept of fighting a war with steel and soldier. Steel can represent an army, but Ballas mentions that greed is the blight that weakens our steel. Greed potentially caused by wealth and power. We always know, and it's a common theme in almost every story ever, that power corrupts. That absolute power corrupts absolutely. But Ballas is mentioning that the greed potentially caused by that power, is what is weakening the Oricum, and it weakens their defenses, possibly leaving them vulnerable. We all know from the Stalker's Codex entry that the Tenno would destroy the Oricum after winning the old war. And this is my first potential of a big theory that Ballas might have had more to do with the Tenno's rebellion than we initially thought. Necros Prime is the one that continues upon my theory from the previous Fallban Prime trailer with this. Fear is a weed, snaking in the dark. It finds within the mind, corrupting it. It germinates within tribes, dividing them. Your graces, we who are beyond death, have forgotten the simple power of fear. Let us now remember, you will find no greater power than the simple thought of your own name inscribed upon a grave. Our harbinger, our terror, Necros.
Ooh, spooky.
This one is where Ballas first mentions to the Orc, the Honored Seven that he is communicating to in these trailers, that the Orcan, because of their immortality and their heightened status, have forgotten what it means to feel fear. We actually see this in the Ordon Chorus notes from the Cephalon fragments, where the Orcan, even though Ordon Chorus cuts them down, because of continuity, they don't feel fear at all. They can just be revived again. But Ballas in this trailer warns them to remember, and he says that there is no greater power over an individual than for them to think of their own name inscribed upon a grave. Think about it. If you're thinking about your own death, that means you're worried. That means you're fearing for your life. Ballas might, in this trailer, be warning them against, well, a terror, Necros, the Warframes. Zeal, you want to mention what a Harbinger is?
A harbinger is a messenger,
A
usually
messenger.
bringing some form of dire consequence upon the person who hears the message afterwards.
Necros to be mentioned as a Harbinger would mean that he would bring a message, but what would this message be? Well, Necros is a necromancer. Death. A message of death, a message of terror to lead to death. Interesting. We'll continue with Banshee, and Banshee doesn't have much interesting, but I will still mention the quote. These like-faced savages, these earth-worn mules, a vast, violent ocean at our command. Yet they wither, mired in mass steel and flesh, casting these hordes from gene molds and flock mines. We inspire nothing. Our demons of void womb must be different, unusual, singular, crafted without cast, wrought of the finest ore, slender and queer, sight without eye, wrath without sound. Not a soldier, but a myth. Not a warrior, a spirit. Banshee. Ballas mentions in here, our demons of void womb must be different from the armies of the Organ, unusual and singular, referencing how the Warframes would all be unique to one another with different abilities and powers that set them apart. Banshee would be a myth, now warrior but a spirit in the background, possibly referencing how Banshee is actually one of the strongest team buffers in the game with sonar. But then he mentions demons of void womb. Ballas has constantly referred to the Tenno as void demons of devil mind, golems possessed by devil minds. To him, they are no longer human, they are demons. They are demons of energy crafted by the void, a threat. And Ballas, he might see that threat coming. He might still fear his own death. Or maybe, based on what he said in the Necros trailer, he might be helping bring that death.
Actually, on the term of death, I do have a couple of things to say. And this is just something I recently remembered, so I haven't actually said this yet. But there was probably a reason why Orden Karas could not kill the Orokin, why they did not fear when they got cut down by him, and why Ballas is warning the executors of Tenno insurrection, and why they should be afraid of the Tenno. And that is because this relates back to the odd relationship between the Kuba and the Oro. All of the executors had an Oro, because Oro is what allows one's spirit to remain intact during continuity. Oro, as Teshin so gladly puts it, can only be consumed by another person with Oro. Every one of the Tenno has an Oro. Cephalon Ordis, otherwise known as Orden Karas, did not. So perhaps the reason why Orden Karas could not kill them was because he could not consume the Oro to kill them forever.
And then the Tenno are able to consume it and destroy them completely.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
It might be an interesting reason why Ballas calls them demons. Demons from uncontrollable power, or maybe demons to match demons. Power to match power. Anyway, now on to Valkyr. Our long, deathless winter has left us numb. Our wasted animal within, ugly and gaunt, hibernates beneath our shimmering beauty. Why do these warframes stir us so? They burn with our lost desires, lost instincts, Tenno tame, but only just. Cast and hunted as game, trapped and tortured, yet they remain animals, less than their human seed, gnawing their limbs from the snare, devouring a banquet of suffering, obese with heat and acid and rage. That is why they will destroy us. This trailer is unique in that it is the only one that does not end with the name of the Warframe. I mentioned earlier how Ballas said Margulis from your winter ashes. Well, apparently, that winter was not deathless, but left them numb. It left them left them not feeling, because Margulis to them possibly was a threat because she gave the Tenno hope. She gave the Tenno a method to survive, and the Tenno could be their only threat. Ballas mentions that they are wasted animal within, ugly and gaunt, and it hibernates within their shimmering beauty. Well, the Orcan are exceptional. The Orcan are mentioned multiple times to be beautiful, but beauty hides cruelty, and this cruelty is definitely shown with their actions against Margulis as well as the Jade Light execution that we talked about earlier. Ballas asks, why do the Warframes stir us? They burn with lost desires and lost instincts. What this part means, I don't exactly know. But possibly the Tenno remind them of who they used to be? And then the Tenno tamed, but only just. And Zeal, I'm guessing this is where you want to come in.
God, why did you have to throw me in now?
Because I'm getting, well, not really tired of monologuing. Here's the quote. Have fun.
Sends me a quote. Said, here, make something with this. Alright,
If you
so cast and haunted is game. Trapped and tortured, yet they remain animals. Less than their human seed, gnawing their limbs from the snare, devouring a banquet of suffering, obese with heat and acid and rage. And that is why they will destroy us.
I already said the quote, I'm just asking
Alright.
for Lord talk.
No, this particular part is what I'm talking about. This final sentence in particular is another warning of what will happen if the Tenno continue to run unchecked, as they probably did back in the days of the Orcan, and as they do now, actually. And this was, again, another warning of the genocide that the Tenno would incur upon the Orcan for the murder of Margulis and for forcing them into the war with the sentients, torturing them for all of it, and turning them into weapons.
But that's also mentioned for the Tenno. Tenno tame but only just. Cast and hunted is game. Hunted not to be consumed, but to be used in war. Trapped and tortured, and yet they remain animals. They remain uncontrolled by the Orcan's power. The Tenno do not answer to the Orcan. They're themselves, they're their own faction. They're their own group, they're separate.
Indeed.
And it's this rage that could possibly consume them, that could possibly result in the death of the Orcan. Ballas is warning the Orcan, the Honored Seven, against the Tenno, possibly not because he's seeing what's coming, but maybe because he possibly helped organize it. He might, and it's one theory of mine, that Ballas might have helped the Tenno by giving them the power they need with the Warframes to help the Tenno gain the power they needed to fight back against the Orcan, possibly out of revenge for what the Orcan did to Margulis, but also because Ballas wanted to be with Margulis. We know from the Apostasy prologue that Lotus is Margulis, but so Ballas might have hid her away so that eventually the Orcan will not come and destroy her for what they have done. We'll get to that part later during the sacrifice teaser. But next, Oberon and Zeal, I actually do want you to read this one because you did good.
Oh, I did good reading?
Yes, you did good reading. Here.
Alright.
Oberon trailer.
Greed and denial will seduce any destruction, even our own. We're blind to future consequence, casting our debts on those to come. But what if now the Grey Mother sought revenge? A brutal thorn, piercing gushing ulcers of waste and industry. A new green sown upon sanguine, sorry. Fertilized with the blood of bone and defilers. Oberon.
What if now the Grey Mother sought revenge? Lua is grey. It's grey rock. And what do we know from the Apostasy Prologue? How do we get to Lotus? Lua. What if now the Grey Mother sought revenge? What if now Margulis is still alive and hunting revenge against the Oricon, the Tenno? A brutal thorn piercing the gushing ulcers of waste and industry. A thorn to snap apart an empire. A spark to ignite a death, a flame of death. The waste, the Grineer, and industry, Corpus. The Tenno more commonly, so commonly in game, fight the Grineer and the Corpus. They fight them far more frequently than the Infested. And then, but the Grineer and the Corpus were part of the Orcan Empire. To get rid of the lower part to spark rebellion. Mirage is next.
Yeah.
Mirage's trailer is the weirdest one in my opinion, and I'm going to mention one of the things so far, and it's the tone of these trailers. Has hostility but also violence in all of them. Words that imply destruction and death, and Mirage's is different, in my opinion, a bit, but still just as weird. Oh, how you suffered to become this beast, yet you laughed at me. Others writhed and raged in the vice, but you played the fool, and so it was that you distorted my design. A sanguine trick, a murderous comedy. But no one is laughing anymore, except you. The mere vapors of your life, shimmering still. Mirage. This trailer for me doesn't really have anything interesting unless Zeal has something to note. It's just a weird set of dialogue. But what really makes me interested in this trailer is who is Ballas talking to? It doesn't seem like he's talking to the seven high members of the Oricon.
Well, I may have some insight on that. Just a little. I don't know. This is just something I thought of that may be the case. Let's say for the sake of the argument, that the Honored Seven ignored Ballas's warnings, the first three of them, and now he is talking to all seven of them as a whole. They're playing the fool, ignoring his warnings.
I feel like he's talking to himself, like he's just mumbling to himself, like in a mirror.
It's one theory I saw one time, but I do think possibly he's Odonkaris, maybe?
Perhaps.
Oh, I don't know if we're gonna get to the helmet thing you mentioned.
No, not yet. But
Okay.
Odonkaris is known as the Beast of Bones. At the start of the Mirage Prime trailer, Ballas says, "Oh, how you suffered to become this beast." Possibly referencing Odonkaris, possibly referencing all of the Oricon.
Perhaps.
But either way, the last one we're talking about is the Sacrifice teaser, and then we'll get to the Apostasy. During the Sacrifice teaser, Ballas says If you could trade, would you? Surely. But all miracles require sacrifice. For their life. Yours. In the background of the sacrifice teaser, the first teaser that they released for the sacrifice, there is what sounds like a heart monitor in a hospital playing. And it's possible Ballas is talking to Margulis and offering her a choice. If you could trade, would you? If you could trade your life, would you do it to help them? Would you do it? Would you trade your life to give Ballas control of the Tenno, to guide them, to give them the power they needed to destroy the organ? But to do that, Margulis would have to disappear or die, to erase herself from history, so that she could possibly make it out. So that the Tenno could survive, because Margulis referred to the Tenno as children, as her children.
I don't know if this is a good place to interject here, but I'd like to note that I came up with something for the Mirage trailer, and for your reference
ahead.
to Orden Paris. During a Q&A session with, I forget the name of the journalist who was doing it, but during a Q&A session, D.E. Scott mentioned, or was it D.A. Steve, one of the two, mentioned that I-attend sculptures will
Steve.
become, a lot more valuable in the future because they will contain the memories of a certain individual we all know.
Yeah, he said it. They act like a little Polaroid, so like a little flashback. I'm guessing. Each I-10 star is like a one specific moment in whoever's memory the I-10s are for. So,
Indeed.
guessing the sculpture is more as in a event. So add memories together, you create an event. So.
I saved a ton of I-10 sculptures.
So the other question is, what is Maru doing with all these item sculptures? Does she know that they're memories? And if so, what's her goal? My question.
Maru also happens to be a very big interest in trade. Trade
Yeah.
that would anger the Corpus. Corpus focus on greed. Trade possibly for Orcan secrets, because she does have a big interest in Orcan secrets, as we can see from the new Strange.
Yeah.
Actually,
Go
the
ahead.
hidden secrets quest. It's the quest that leads into the new Strange. I forget what it's called.
And I'm hoping at some point in time the sacrifice will eventually link to the new Strange with the arcane machine.
The arcane machine, yeah, which wasn't weird. Was that by where the arcane machine Chroma?
Yeah, that was Chroma. Or Chroma was guarding the arcane machine with arcane boilers. And we still have no idea what the arcane machine actually does.
I guess we need to redo that quest. And speaking of Chroma, there's a Chroma drag helmet available right now. So yeah, perfect timing, I guess. Anyways, let's continue.
The arcane machine says, all is silent, hushed, and empty. Is the womb of the sky. All is silent and calm. Hushed and empty is the womb of the sky.
The womb of the sky.
The moon. The moon is gone. The moon is gone.
I'm thinking more specifically the well that the Tenno came from.
That's more as in the womb. That's inside.
There's also one line that's on the wiki, which is trivia. The cryptic message broadcasted by the arcane machine is a translate quote from Popol Vuh, a ancient Mayan text. The excerpt in particular concerns primordial Earth, and in the new strange, Cephalon Zamaris tells the player that the biological signature of the voice is of Tenno origin. Chroma, but still the womb of the sky has gone silent.
We'll see.
We'll see in the thingy, but kind of want to wrap this up. Agenta, I don't know if you want to quickly put in that helmet thing we talked about.
Yeah, the fact that if you look during the apostasy prologue, that Lotus's helmet, Lotus is linked up to this pod thing, and then when Ballas walks in, he releases an energy pulse from his hand, which disconnects the cables from Lois's helmet, the hat that we now have in the orbiter from that pod, and then the Tenno has a weird case of transference static. And then afterwards, Lotus actually refers to Ballas by name as Ballas, and then Ballas says, I will not abandon you again, Margulis. Which is possible, which was the main line that proved that that Lotus might be Margulis, which she most likely is.
So earlier we were discussing about, so we have Margulis, we have Natal, and we have the Lotus, and how Agenta just mentioned that when the cable connection disconnect, we also get that transferred static. So there's some theories suggesting that the physical helmet itself. This is a stretch, but I'm guessing that the helmet is going back to the item sculpture. Could be some sort of memory bank, or
possibly holding memories back.
Yeah.
Possibly holding the memories back so that she forgets. But then also, there's also a theory going around right now that the helmet might actually be Nata, but then Margulis is just wearing the helmet so that she doesn't know she's Margulis, and Nata takes over her body.
Yeah, so it's a multi-personality.
Umbra's stuff might be related to the Jade Light, because we know Umbra is gaining a unique ability, and it might be something related to the Jade Light.
I want to know what's his passive is going to be.
Probably the same as Excalibur.
I wonder if it's going to do something with like Mirage ability, the light one. Like if
sure.
under shadow he gets powerful, under light such.
Yeah, the fact that Umbra appears to be grieving something, and then Ballas says in a voice very similar to Hunhao, "How all you want, you can't bring him back." The operators appear to be male in body, at least, and so possibly operator has died.
Yeah, and so how we discussed earlier about mortality with the tree and everything.
Zeal, anything you want to mention?
Yeah.
Well,
So
I'd like to.
Go ahead.
I'd like to slip in the fact, or the idea, not the fact. This is all ideas after all, but I'd like to slip in the idea that Umbra is the person that kills the operator. because it's Sakura tree.
Yeah.
Either way, all of this and everything we have discussed here is speculation, and I think all of us would very much like to know what your ideas are. And go
Yeah.
ahead, spread this around, post in the comments. Go ahead,
Yeah,
make your
there's
own
gonna be
theories from
links
our...
in the description and some after notes if we have any. So yeah, let us know what we did wrong. If we forgot something, just add it in. Yeah, just
Oh,
our
and
goal.
if you're big in the Warframe community, wow, how the hell did you find our video?
Yeah, we are a small channel, so yeah. Catch you guys next time on Speculations. Bye.
Bye. Zeal, you can say bye.
Oh, bye bye.